Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the short delay. Everybody is finally here, and we are ready to get started for our Surveillance 101 webinar. My name is Erica Sluter, and I'm the marketing strategist here at Optus. And our presenters for today are Rebecca Selby, our marketing manager, and Shane Lerma, our engineering manager. These two are the experts on surveillance, and we are so lucky to have them with us here today. Before we get started, I do want to let you know that because we have so many people on the line, we have everyone in attendee mode. This means that your mics are muted to reduce line feedback, but we still want you to ask questions if you have any. So to do that, please utilize the chat or questions features in your sidebar. I will be monitoring the questions throughout the presentation, and we will take time to make sure we answer them. Also, after the webinar, I will email you a recording of the webinar along with a PDF that discusses what we talk about today. So without further ado, let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Like Erica said, my name is Rebecca Selby. I'm the marketing and product manager here at Optus. Recently, Optus has started offering surveillance solutions. And when we were building out our surveillance practice, we realized, that IT professional surveillance is, top of mind. Surveillance and security are top of mind to those professionals. And most of the contacts that we have been tapped in some way to identify surveillance solutions for their organization. And it's funny that, like a lot of IT equipment and hardware, surveillance comes with its own set of code and terminology. That what we want to do today is give you, a high-level overview of the most important pieces of surveillance equipment, what to look for, and what to evaluate, how to evaluate those pieces of the surveillance solutions, so that you can have an educated conversation with vendors, integrators, and so that you can, independently as well evaluate solutions. So to start off, we like to say that there is one rule in surveillance. What is that rule? Well, that rule is to always maintain picture quality. So you can have the most expensive setup, the most sophisticated setup, but if you can't identify a person, in the frame, your surveillance practice isn't worth very much.
Yeah, everyone, this is Shane Lerma, by the way, as well. I'm riding shotgun today to just offer any kind of technical insights and some bad jokes from time to time as well. But, Rebecca's absolutely right here. I think this boils down to an old saying that I've always heard is you kind of get what you pay for. There's definitely lower cost solutions out there, and I see a lot of companies that buy those, and then they just can't get the images that they can use. And I think we've probably all seen on the news those little blurbs that pop up, like the video still of the guy robbing the convenience store, and this will kind of show my age here, but to me it looks like a dark pixelated version of like one of the Mario Brothers, from those 80s video games. And they're expecting you to kind of identify those. So if you can't identify those people, those images don't do a lot of good. So definitely maintaining that picture quality, Rebecca, is definitely the key piece of any kind of surveillance system.
Yeah, and so, cameras are not one size fits all, lenses are not one size fits all, so you really have to know your surrounding, the area you want in the shot, to be able to ensure that the solutions that you choose will maintain that picture quality that you're looking for. And like Shane said, you get what you pay for, not, the least expensive camera may not provide that picture quality that you're looking for. So we're going to dive into to start out talking about cameras and lenses. So the first thing is, this analog versus IP cameras. So at the beginning of closed circuit television, CCTV, you had an analog camera, some coax cable, and then a monitor to view that on one closed circuit. Now, obviously, you guys, if you've looked into surveillance, you know that the market's moving at a rapid pace to IP cameras. But there is still a significant segment of the market and industries and organizations that have a need for analog. And so we suggest and recommend that you choose a manufacturer, a surveillance and security manufacturer, that not only continues to sell analog cameras if you're in that boat, but also looks to optimize their analog offerings.
There can definitely be quite a few differences between analog and IP. Cost of course sometimes is one of those. But to Rebecca's point, there's a lot of use still in analog, so you see a lot of hybrid solutions out there that are using both. But sometimes when you're looking at certain levels of quality, or maybe analytics, or even maybe you're wanting to do certain storage options, there's definitely some advantages that the IP cameras can offer, and we can always help you evaluate those based upon your particular needs.
Third is zoom. Let's talk about some zoom. So there are two types of lens zoom, fixed and varifocal. So very pretty easy to understand. Fixed is fixed. That field of view is unchangeable. But then there's two types of varifocal. There's manual, and then there's motorized or automatic. So if you're looking at a varifocal camera, you really need to take into account the manpower it would take to, if you have a manual camera, you're going to probably have to climb a ladder or get on a Jenny boom to focus that camera. So you need to take the time into account and the effort that it's going to cause your organization to focus the camera.
Yeah, a lot of organizations will look at how frequently they change their shots, their targets. If you're pretty static and you're not changing those a lot, a fixed lens may be for you. But if you're looking at different views from that one camera, that one angle, those varifocal lenses can make a lot of difference. And if you're doing that very frequently, the automatic, let me tell you, will save you a lot of climbing, moving up and down the ladders, as you mentioned, to do that. They don't necessarily pay for themselves that first day, but after you've got your man hours into those changing scenes that you're changing each day, it often makes sense to look at that other investment on a varifocal.
Fourth, millimeter. So every lens is going to have a millimeter rating. You're going to see this on the spec sheets. So if you look at a surveillance camera spec sheet, it will have a millimeter rating. Fixed lenses are going to range from around 3 millimeters to 8 millimeters, and varifocal you're going to see 2.8 to about 12 millimeters. So those are industry standards. What you need to take into account and look at is on the millimeter rating, the lower the value, the wider the shot, and basically vice versa. So the wider the shot, and then the wider the shot, the less depth perception. So I want to show you a picture here. Most likely this camera has a pretty, I would say a low millimeter rating, maybe a 2.8 to around a 4 millimeter. And this camera is covering, you can see, a large parking lot. And there's very little depth perception that you see here. So if you, if someone was walking through the parking lot down by that Best Buy sign, you most likely you would not be able to to see their face very well. So to be able to identify someone in the shot, more than likely what you're going to need to do is choose a higher millimeter rating and put multiple cameras across this parking lot so that you'll be able to get the depth perception that you need. So that's the trade-off in millimeter ratings.
I think I can see Luigi in the parking lot down there.
All right, let's talk about lens chip size. So again, this will be on a spec sheet on a camera. So the chip size is basically the size of the camera imager. The larger the chip size, the more light the lens can collect. You'll see chip sizes range from 1/4 of an inch to about 1/2 an inch chip. A majority of those lenses out there today, cameras out there today, are a 1/2 inch chip. If the area you're trying to, cover, or the surrounding that you're trying to put a camera in, is in a low light situation, you need to purchase a camera with a 1/2 inch chip, that larger chip size. Moving on to lux rating. So a lux is just a measurement. It's the amount of light that's given off by one candle in a 1 meter space. So that is what a lux, the measurement is. If you see a lux rating on a camera, the lower the lux rating, the better a camera will see in low light. A camera, if you see a very low lux rating, so you'll see that 0.0001, that camera will see in almost total darkness. You can see this lux rating chart. Full sunshine is 10,000 lux. Obviously, complete darkness is 0 lux. And most cameras out there will enable infrared at 0 lux. So once it measures 0 lux, then your infrared capabilities, if you choose a camera that has infrared capabilities, will turn on after that. Day-night cameras. So as the lux decreases on a camera, or the lux actually, the surrounding, the area, the lux decreases, the amount of light decreases, a camera will then convert to shooting in black and white. So there's 2 different types of day-night cameras. There's true day-night cameras, and there's electronic day-night cameras. True day-night cameras, they move what we call a cut filter across the screen. So an obvious black line, you will see it, moves across the screen, and then the picture after that will be black and white. Now, electronic day-night cameras, they basically kill the color circuit to the camera. So to illustrate this, imagine you're watching the newest episode of Game of Thrones, and you decide you want to turn that off, or the kids come into the room, and you turn it on to an old rerun of a black and white Andy Griffith. So that's what happens is the color circuit to the TV's cut. So that's the difference between true day-night cameras and electronic day-night cameras. There's some trade-offs between those two. True day-night cameras see better in darkness. They can also see infrared, but they're more expensive. Electronic day-night cameras don't see as well in dark. They can't see infrared, but they are less expensive.
And I'd say, Rebecca, the day-night mode and the lux ratings are probably some of the most, I would say, fudged statistics from camera manufacturers. So just watching that and understanding what you're really getting if they set the day-night camera can make a lot of difference. To your point, electronic day-night works to some degree, but that true day-night, back to you get what you pay for. Usually you're going to get a better quality image with those true day-night cameras and those lux ratings as well. It's good to see a demo of those situations sometimes because, if you're out in a parking lot and there's very low lighting, you want that lux rating to be accurate. And I think that 1/10,000th lux rating, that's pretty much no moon, maybe some starlight light out there, and that's it. And most cameras have a really hard time with that. So anytime choosing those day-night or those low light cameras, with most manufacturers, they tend to really brag on themselves in those areas. So it's good to really make sure that the camera you're getting is really sufficient for your needs.
Let's talk about noise reduction. So if you have a mediocre lux camera, what can happen is that picture can contain what I would call graininess or even fireflies. So what happens is the camera interprets that graininess as motion, and it increases the bandwidth that the camera's putting out. I'm going to show you guys an example here. So on the left, this is a camera that it does not have noise reduction, and on the right is a camera with noise reduction. So noise reduction, basically what it does is it cleans up all that graininess and the false motion in the fireflies, which decreases your bandwidth. And as you know, as your bandwidth increases, your storage builds up faster. So what this will do is, one, give you a better picture. It'll maintain that picture quality that you need, but it'll also decrease your bandwidth, which then will slow your storage rate, or slow the rate of which your storage is filling up or will fill up. Impact protection. So every camera will contain an IK rating. And what an IK rating is, it's just the degree of protection provided by electrical equipment against external mechanical impacts. So basically, the higher the IK rating, the better vandal resistance it will have. So the more it can withstand mechanical impact, being dropped, being hit. The rule of thumb is, if a camera is going to be in reach of potential vandals, you would want a camera to have an IK rating of IK08. So that rating protects from 5 joules of impact, which is around a little over 3.5-pound mass dropped from a foot above a surface. That is an IK08 rating. Of 08 is probably the best in the market today, best in class. You won't find one with much higher than that. So we're going to move on to recorders just really quick. So there are two types of recorders out there, DVR and NVR. DVR is for analog cameras, NVR is for IP cameras. What you need to look for in recorders is, one, many manufacturers charge a license for every camera. So you need to take that into account when you're looking at your solution. Are you going to have to purchase an initial license? And then what are those renewal fees when purchased, when every year? How much is that going to cost you? And then you need to purchase the right size of recorder. And there's some standard criteria that solution manufacturers and integrators will look for to help you guys calculate the right size of the recorder. Those are desired frame rates. So, do you want 10 frames per second, 100 frames per second? Obviously, the more frames per second, the bigger recorder you're going to need. Camera resolution, are you recording in high def, or are you recording in motion JPEG? Also, an amount of storage you want to save. So do you want to just store or save 1 day, or do you want to save 30 days? How many cameras you have on the network, and then what percentage of motion's in the scene. So are you looking at is the camera looking at a room that doesn't have very much movement, or are you shooting a busy street or a busy parking lot? So finally, one of the things we want to talk about is security. So 2017 and 2016 even it's been a very busy year in the security world, surveillance and security world. There's been numerous bulletins about various manufacturers detailing out vulnerabilities that's been found. There's been several manufacturers, called out as untrustworthy network devices. So when you choose a solution, you need to choose a manufacturer that if issues come up, security issues come up, they acknowledge the issue, they take responsibility, and they send out fixes and patches quickly and effectively to those security threats.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty serious area,
Yeah.
Rebecca. I mean, if you invest in a security system, surveillance system to kind of monitor your stuff, the last thing you want is someone else gaining access to that, because it can have just the opposite effect of the intended use. Is instead of protecting your equipment, they may be able to tell what would be a good time or what your weak spots are, et cetera. So definitely choosing the right system, making sure there's no built-in back doors, and like I said, the U.S. government's even got involved this year, amazingly enough, on some of the manufacturers. So just being abreast of those latest changes and notifications, and just working with a trusted advisor to make sure they steer you in the right direction.
And you can easily find those bulletins and those announcements. A lot of them have come from the Department of Homeland Security. So you can Google and find out the different reports on different manufacturers. So here's just some really high-level security tips to look for and to make sure the solution that you choose have these items available, or if you currently have a security practice, double checking that these things are available or you have enabled them. So one, it's very simple, but is physical access. So if somebody can get to your cameras, then they could do something to them. So if you can touch a camera, anyone can factory default that if they want to. You need to mount cameras high up out of reach or flush mount in a ceiling or housing. And then NVRs and switches should be in a locked area. So if someone can get to your NVR, they can, do whatever they want to with it. You want to secure power cables and not be, someone secure them where they can't be cut or reach them.
And that's what we see on TV all the time, with the criminals going in and cutting network cables or power cables. And that's a very real occurrence in the world today. So just something simple as running those cables in a secure area through conduit, something that's not easily tampered with, and someone can't jump up and cut very easily. Some other nice things too. Some of the manufacturers have like those. If they do happen to cut the network cable, they have like built-in SD cards. So even if that crafty criminal can cut the cabling, you've got some backup that stores your video that can again resync with your NVR or give to the authorities. In that case, because oftentimes that backup video there locally can make all the difference in the world.
Another thing is your password policy that the manufacturer puts in. So as most of us know, the longer and more complex of a password, the longer it'll take someone to hack it. I was doing some research, and a 5-character all-letter password, the industry says that it will take 0.09 seconds to crack. But if you move that to a 9-character, being 8 letters and 1 number, that would take 39 days to crack. So, it's suggested that a manufacturer have a password policy of at least 8+ characters, made up of numbers, uppercase, lowercase, and special characters, just to protect you from, hackers.
I think we mentioned it earlier too, but that's one big security flaw from some manufacturers is when they have a default password.
Yes.
That's just something very key to watch out for.
Yeah.
Because then anybody can get in, look around, kind of view whatever you're not wanting to do, or position the camera in a way, if it's a motorized one, so that you can't see the target area.
Sure, and another one is password guessing. So if someone enters an incorrect password too many times, it should lock the cameras down. So an example is like an incorrect password 5 times within 30 seconds, it shuts that down. And make sure that, if there's an authenticated video stream that's already being used, that it doesn't cut that connection. As well as Shane kind of mentioned back doors. So making sure that those default passwords aren't available, and there's not a back door into that. And like Shane said, many manufacturers provide that one-time use. I'm going to show you this. The left here is a web page that someone put together that used a cracked algorithm and allowed anyone to generate a password. So you could go to this web page and figure out the password. And on the right is an MVR password combination that simply is a combination of the MAC address and the serial number. So you could just enter that, and this is certain manufacturers, and you could get the MVR password. And just really quickly, just some more high-level security tips. Look for restricted file and camera access from open platform apps. Some manufacturers allow third-party apps to have direct root access to camera file systems. You want a manufacturer that does not allow this. Changing default ports is another tip that you can look at. There are well-known default ports out there, so the ability to be able to change these to a different port number. The ability to execute IP filtering. So some manufacturers allow you to create a list that will either allow or deny access from specific IP addresses. So you can use this for your security team. Put in the list of their IP addresses, and that's the only people that could get to your cameras. And then last is an access to a bulk operation for device management. So you will want to be able to update all your cameras and devices with the proper security settings, and it's going to be really hard if you have hundreds of cameras out on the network to be able to do this. So to have an interface to where you can provide device management is very, very important. So at Optus, our solution that we lead with is Hanwha TechWin security solution. You may know this by the name of Samsung. So this was formerly Samsung Security, and now is named Hanwha TechWin. It's the same product, just a different name. So why does Optus, why is our solution Hanwha TechWin? You can see those bullet points, but really they are the industry leaders against cyber attacks. They also provide affordable solutions for all business sizes. They have what I would call a three-level model. They have a basic, you can get basic cameras, you can get a mid-level, and you can get premium that offers all sorts of fancy settings, flair, if you will.
Yeah.
Sorry, my mind went blank. From facial recognition to heat mapping, any size of business, any type of business, they offer a solution. Most of the recorders have a built-in PoE switch. There are no licensing fees on DVRs or NVRs. You get a free video management software, lifetime US-based manufacturer support, product warranty, and they also do have a deep integration with top-rated VMS vendors. So that is the reason Optus works with, some of the reasons Optus works with Hanwha TechWin.
Yeah, and some things that a lot of people may not know, Rebecca, too, is that, the Hanwha TechWin Samsung guys are the ones who work with the U.S. military, too. So, that means a couple things to me. One, it's about security. They went through tighter DoD regulations than just about anybody out there. And it also means, cutting-edge technology because, the security systems they sell to the business world is only reflected, a minor reflection of what they can really develop out there. So, their Lux rating is always consistently how low they can go, some of the consistent in the industry because they develop night vision cameras for our military and stuff like that. So, their cutting-edge technology really bleeds over really well, I think, for the commercial market. And, just their defense contracts, speak for themselves to be being that level of the U.S. government, there's a lot of trust there where there's not with some other manufacturers.
And so that concludes what we've got for today. Erica, is there any questions that have come in?
We actually had one question. So they asked, what could be a good solution if I'm always running out of space on my NVR?
So I'll fill that one, I guess. So a couple different things we could do there. Depending on the type of cameras and everything you have, there's a few solutions. That could be as easy as different compression if you're using IP cameras. The newest, for example, the Hanwha TechWin, the latest cameras use a H.265 codec. In the past, H.264 was kind of the industry standard, leading standard, and that just basically compresses your video, makes a smaller bandwidth, takes up less space. So like the 265 standard that Samsung's putting out now is really industry leading in that compression technology. And it can also be as simple as maybe just recording what you want to record, like on-demand recording with analytics. Because I'll reference those old TV shows, cop shows again, where the guys sit there in the dark room watching hours of video to get to the scene they want, and it's a night scene where nothing changes, and finally they see the prowler, step out of the bushes. With today's IP camera, you don't necessarily have to record that whole scene 24/7. You can use motion detection to only record when something happens. So instead of having 24 hours of recording a day, maybe there's only 45 minutes of activity going on. So again, saving a lot of room. But a lot of different ways, that frames per second, lots of different ways we can look at that. I'm glad to talk to anybody, about that kind of technology and what you can do to kind of reduce your storage, because storage is one of those huge things you consider with any kind of surveillance system.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shane. That is all the questions that have came in the past 30 minutes. So before we get off of here, I do, just want to thank Rebecca and Shane so much for coming and hosting this webinar. I hope you guys learned a lot today and learned something new. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We would be glad to talk to you about surveillance options and your current solution and how Optus could help you upgrade that solution. So after the webinar, once again, I will email you the recording of this webinar along with a PDF that discusses what we talked about. And so we hope to see you guys at our next webinar. An email will be sent out within the next couple weeks, and we're glad to continue this series and hope that we can share some information. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.